There are cities that embrace you and cities that challenge you. There are cities whose beauty is a soft, sun-drenched song, and cities whose beauty is a stern, intellectual, and deeply melancholy poem. Trieste is a poem. It is not a quintessentially Italian city. To look for the familiar, warm embrace of Tuscany or the chaotic vibrancy of Naples here is to be searching for a story that was never written. Trieste is a city of echoes and absences, a magnificent phantom limb of a lost empire, a place whose soul was forged not under the Italian sun, but in the cool, cosmopolitan, and neurotic heart of Mitteleuropa. Its primary defining feature, the force that shapes its character more than any other, is the wind. The Bora. It is not a gentle breeze, it is a metaphysical event. A fierce, gusting, often violent wind that sweeps down from the barren karst plateau. It scours the city streets, polishes the stone facades, and whips the sea into a frenzy of whitecaps. The Triestini have a relationship with the Bora that borders on the mythic. It is a nuisance, a danger, but it is also a source of pride, a force of brutal clarity. The Bora strips the air of humidity and haze, leaving behind a light that is sharp, crystalline, and almost painfully clear. It is a wind that forces you to see the city for what it is, a place of hard, beautiful bones, a city built on the edge of the world. To stand in its main square, the Piazza Unità d'Italia, is to understand this profound sense of being on the edge. It is the largest public square in Europe that opens directly onto the sea. On three sides, it is framed by a procession of immense, impossibly grand white neoclassical palaces, the architectural legacy of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. On the fourth side, there is nothing, just the vast, open expanse of the Adriatic Sea. The effect is one of breathtaking, almost vertiginous grandeur. This is not a cozy, enclosed piazza designed for intimate community life. It is a stage, a magnificent, empty proscenium arch facing the water, waiting for an imperial fleet that will never return. This magnificent void is the key to Trieste's soul. It is a city defined by a spectacular absence, haunted by the ghost of the empire it was built to serve. The story of modern Trieste is the story of a deliberate act of creation, a city willed into being by imperial decree. While its origins are ancient, the Roman settlement of Trieste stood on the hill of San Giusto. Its character was forged much later. For centuries, it was a modest free commune, perpetually overshadowed and threatened by the maritime power of the Venetian Republic. In 1382, in a decisive act of self-preservation, Trieste made a choice that would define its destiny. It voluntarily placed itself under the protection of the Habsburg Dukes of Austria. It chose the landlocked Germanic Empire over the Latin, seafaring one. For centuries, this remained a quiet arrangement. The Great Transformation, the city's Big Bang, came in 1719. In that year, the Habsburg Emperor Charles VI, desperate for a major seaport to rival Venice and connect his vast landlocked empire to global trade, declared Trieste a free port. This decree was a catalyst of incredible power. It unleashed a wave of investment, construction, and migration. The old medieval town, clinging to the San Giusto hill, was suddenly insufficient. A new city had to be built. Under the reign of Charles's daughter, the great Empress Maria Theresa, the modern city of Trieste was born. On reclaimed land wrested from the sea, a new district was planned and built with Enlightenment rationality. This is the Borgo Teresiano, the Teresian Quarter. It is a city of straight lines, a perfect grid of streets built around a grand canal designed to allow ships to sail directly into the heart of the city to unload their goods. It was a city designed for commerce. Its handsome neoclassical palaces built not for ancient noble families, but for a new, ambitious class of merchants, ship owners, and insurance brokers. The free port attracted a remarkably cosmopolitan population. People flocked here from every corner of the Habsburg Empire and beyond. Italians, Slovenes, Croats, Austrians, Hungarians, Greeks, Serbs, Armenians, and a thriving Jewish community all came to Trieste to seek their fortune. It became a vibrant melting pot of languages, cultures, and religions. A city where a Greek Orthodox church could stand a stone's throw from a Serbian Orthodox one, and where the Great Synagogue was one of the largest in Europe. This multicultural, mercantile, and multilingual environment created a unique urban psychology, pragmatic, worldly, and slightly detached from the fervent nationalism that was beginning to sweep across the rest of Italy. This unique urban psyche would find its ultimate expression not in politics or art, but in literature and in the city's most important civic institutions, its historic coffee houses. The cafés of Trieste, like the Café San Marco, the Café degli Specchi, and the Café Tomaseo, were not just places to drink a coffee. They were the city's living rooms, its true intellectual and spiritual heart. With their grand, high-ceilinged interiors, their marble-topped tables, their newspaper racks, and their clouds of smoke, they were sanctuaries of conversation, commerce, and contemplation. They were the spaces where the city's neurotic, introspective, and brilliantly creative soul was nurtured. It was in these cafes that the three great literary ghosts who haunt the city to this day, James Joyce, Italo Svevo, and Umberto Saba, would spend their hours observing the city and transforming its unique atmosphere into immortal literature. James Joyce's long, productive exile in Trieste from 1904 to 1915 was one of the most formative periods of his life. He came here as a young, impoverished language teacher, but he found in Trieste the perfect European city in which to hone his art. He was an outsider, and his sharp, critical eye was perfectly suited to observing the city's complex social fabric. He was fascinated by its mix of languages, its commercial pragmatism, and its particular brand of world-weary irony. It was here, in the noisy, smoky cafes and the modest apartments he rented, that he wrote most of Dubliners and a portrait of the artist as a young man. Most importantly, it was here that he began to formulate the revolutionary ideas and characters for his masterpiece, Ulysses. The multi-ethnic, polyglot, and port city consciousness of Trieste provided the perfect model for the sprawling, universal consciousness of his hero, Leopold Bloom. If Joyce was the brilliant outsider who used Trieste as his laboratory, Italo Svevo was the ultimate insider, the true voice of the Triestine bourgeoisie. Born Aaron Ettore Schmitz to a German Jewish father and an Italian mother, his very name, Italos the Swabian, was a declaration of the city's hybrid identity. Svevo was a businessman who wrote in his spare time, a man who perfectly understood the anxieties and rationalizations of his class. He and Joyce became friends, with Joyce famously teaching him English and encouraging him to continue writing after his early novels were met with indifference. Svevo's masterpiece, La Coscienza di Zeno, Zeno's Conscience, is arguably the greatest psychological portrait of a city ever written, because its protagonist, Zeno Cossini, is Trieste. Zeno is a neurotic, indecisive, chain-smoking hypochondriac, a man constantly making resolutions he fails to keep, a master of self-deception and ironic self-assaner. His story is a hilarious and profound exploration of the modern, fragmented self. His famous struggle to quit smoking, his ambivalent love affairs, and his accidental success in business perfectly capture the spirit of a city that was commercially successful yet perpetually anxious, a city at the crossroads of cultures, never entirely sure of its own identity. Svevo's novel is the key that unlocks the city's psyche. The third great literary spirit of the city was the poet Umberto Saba. Like Svevo, Saba was of mixed Jewish and Italian heritage. He spent his life in the city running a small antiquarian bookshop in the Old Town, which is still a literary landmark today. Saba was the poet of Trieste's quiet corners, its hidden streets, and its brooding grace. His most famous poem, Trieste, captures the city's soul with profound empathy. He describes its painful grace, its combination of energy and melancholy. He writes of the young boy who runs through the streets, happy to be alive in a city at the edge of the world. Saba's poetry provides the emotional soundtrack to the city, a voice of quiet, honest, and deeply felt affection for his difficult, beloved hometown. The world that these writers documented, the prosperous, cosmopolitan, and culturally vibrant world of Austrian Trieste, came to a catastrophic end in 1918. With the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire after the First World War, the city was redeemed and annexed by the Kingdom of Italy. On the surface, it was a moment of triumph for the city's Italian-speaking population. But it was an economic and cultural disaster. In being joined to Italy, Trieste was violently severed from its entire hinterland, from Austria, Hungary, Slovenia, and the vast Central European markets that it was built to serve. The great imperial port suddenly had no empire. It became a city on the periphery, a magnificent head without a body. This is the source of Trieste's profound and enduring melancholy, the sense of a place whose grand architecture was built for a purpose that no longer exists. The 20th century would bring further trauma. After the Second World War, the city and its surrounding territory became a pawn in the new Cold War. It was established as the Free Territory of Trieste, a buffer state under Allied military government, its future uncertain and contested by both Italy and Yugoslavia. This was a period of immense tension and political strife. Finally, in 1954, the territory was partitioned, with the city of Trieste and a narrow coastal strip remaining with Italy, and the rest of the hinterland going to Yugoslavia. Trieste was now definitively a border city, a remote outpost at the very edge of the Western world, looking out across the Iron Curtain. This history of conflict has left deep scars, the most profound of which is the Risiera di San Saba. This large, grim industrial building, a former rice-husking factory on the outskirts of the city, was converted by the Nazis during their occupation of Trieste into the only concentration camp on Italian soil to have a working crematorium. Here, thousands of partisans, political prisoners, and Jews were tortured and killed. Today, the Risiera is a national monument, a civic museum, and a place of quiet, harrowing remembrance. It is a necessary and painful part of the city's story, a reminder of the brutal ideologies that swept through this borderland. To climb the hill of San Giusto today is to ascend through all the layers of Trieste's history. At the summit, you find the remnants of the Roman Forum and Basilica. You find the formidable 15th century castle, a symbol of the city's long struggle for independence. And you find the Cathedral of San Giusto, a unique and beautiful church formed by the joining of two separate older basilicas. Its plain, asymmetrical facade a testament to its complex history. From the top of the hill, you can look down upon the entire city. The dense maze of the old medieval town, the rational grid of the 18th century Borgo Teresiano, and the magnificent wide embrace of the Piazza Unità opening onto the sea. And always, there is the wind, the bora. It sweeps through the city, cleaning the air, rattling the windows, and reminding the citizens of the raw, untamed power of the karst landscape that looms behind them. It is a wind that brings with it a certain clarity, a certain harshness that is an integral part of the city's character. It is the perfect metaphor for the city itself. Trieste is not a soft, comfortable, or easy place. Its beauty is a severe intellectual beauty. Its charm is a complex, ironic charm. It is a city that has been shaped by the collision of empires, the dreams of writers, and the relentless force of its own geography. It is a city that teaches you that absence can be as powerful a presence as any monument. The empty sea before the Piazza Unità is filled with the ghosts of the Austrian Lloyd steamers that once connected Trieste to the entire world. The grand cafés are filled with the echoes of the literary arguments of Joyce and Svevo. The city is a palimpsest, a text where the grand, confident handwriting of the Habsburg Empire has been overwritten by the more anxious, questioning script of the 20th century. To visit Trieste is to learn to read this layered text, to appreciate its brooding grace, and to find a profound and unforgettable beauty in its magnificent, windswept, and enduring soul. The grand dream of an imperial port, willed into being by the Habsburgs, found its most tangible expression in the district built upon land wrested from the sea. The Borgo Teresiano, the Teresian Quarter, is the physical manifestation of the city's 18th century rebirth. It is a world of straight lines and rational thought, a perfect grid imposed upon the marshland, a testament to the Enlightenment belief in order and progress. At its heart is the Ponte Rosso, or Grand Canal, a direct channel that allowed sailing ships to navigate from the bay into the very center of the new commercial district, unloading their cargo of coffee, spices, and cotton directly onto the doorsteps of the grand merchant palaces that line its banks. To stand by the canal today is to witness a quieter version of this original purpose. The tall ships are gone, replaced by small pleasure boats, but the magnificent architecture remains. The Palazzo Carziati, with its neoclassical facade and great green dome, stands at the head of the canal like a proud admiral. The Serbian Orthodox Church of San Spiridione, with its immense blue domes and glittering mosaics, seems to have been transported directly from Byzantium, a testament to the wealth and influence of the Serbian merchant community who built it. The entire district is a monument to commerce. Its uniform, handsome buildings designed not for ancient, feuding nobles, but for a new pragmatic aristocracy of trade. It is a city built not on birthright, but on the calculated risk of the ledger book. But the true business of Trieste, the trade in ideas, neuroses, and literary ambition, took place elsewhere, in the city's secular sanctuaries, its magnificent historic cafés. These were never simply places for a quick espresso. They were extensions of the office, the study, and the salon. They were the city's living rooms, where business deals were sealed, political plots were hatched, and literary masterpieces were conceived in a haze of tobacco smoke and intellectual debate. To understand the mind of Trieste, one must understand its cafés. The Café San Marco is perhaps the most literary of them all. Tucked away from the grand squares, its interior is a world of dark wood, worn velvet banquettes, and smoky mirrors that have reflected a century of intense conversation. In the years before 1914, it was a hotbed of irredentism, the movement to unite Trieste with Italy, and was famously destroyed by Austrian troops and then famously rebuilt. It has always been the haunt of intellectuals, writers, and students, a place for deep thought and quiet rebellion. It feels like a library that happens to serve coffee, a space imbued with a serious, almost conspiratorial intellectual energy. Just a short walk away, the Café Tomaseo, the oldest in the city, offers a different atmosphere. With its original 19th century decor, its Viennese thonat chairs, and its elegant, light-filled rooms, it was the preferred establishment of the city's prosperous bourgeoisie. This was the café of Italo Svevo's world, the haunt of successful merchants, insurers, and shipping agents. One can easily imagine Svevo sitting here, quietly observing the very characters, their anxieties, their commercial obsessions, their self-justifications, that he would later immortalize in his novels. It is a space that speaks of established comfort and the intricate psychology of a prosperous commercial class. Then there is the Café degli Specchi, the Café of Mirrors, which holds the prime position on the Piazza Unità d'Italia. This is the city's great public stage. To sit at one of its outdoor tables is not an act of quiet contemplation, but one of performance. It is the place to see and be seen, to watch the life of the city unfold against the magnificent backdrop of the square and the sea. Each of these cafes represents a different facet of the Triestine character: the rebellious intellectual, the prosperous bourgeois, and the public performer. They were the true laboratories where the city's modern, complex consciousness was brewed. In the end, one returns to the city's fundamental nature as a place on the edge. It is a geographical and cultural frontier. Its identity is not a settled, comfortable thing. It is a constant negotiation between its Italian soul, its Slavic hinterland, and its deep, formative German-speaking imperial past. Its greatest writers, Joyce, Svevo, Saba, were all men of complex, hybrid identities, perfectly suited to capturing the soul of a city that was itself a hybrid. Trieste is not a city that offers easy consolations or simple beauty. Its charm is an acquired taste, a beauty that is intellectual, ironic, and tinged with a profound sense of melancholy for a lost golden age. It is a city that may not capture your heart on the first visit, but it will capture your mind. It invites you to wander its grand, empty squares, to sit in its smoky, literary cafés, and to feel the bracing, clarifying slap of the Bora wind. It asks you to contemplate the strange tides of history and the complexities of identity. It is a place, once known, that is impossible to forget, a city whose brooding grace leaves a more lasting and thought-provoking impression than 1,000 sunsets on a more conventional shore.